Funding for Schaffrillas is provided by Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Blue Sky is a studio that exists. Or, it did. I've gotten a lot of requests to take a look at this studio in particular, and since they only made 13 films, I figured it would be easy to make a video on them out of respect. Respect for the dead? Yeah, I'm gonna be upfront. If you're a die-hard fan of this studio and its output, I don't think this is the video for you. Because I have practically no reverence for Blue Sky Studios, and I do not miss them now that they've been shut down by Disney as part of the Fox merger. It's not like I hate Blue Sky or anything. I just don't have any strong opinions about them or anything they've made, be it positive or negative. Except Big Weld. The movie at the bottom of this list isn't something I vitriolically hate, nor is the movie at the top of the list something I genuinely love. As such, I am completely indifferent to the loss of this studio. The only thing I remotely feel bad about, besides the loss of Big Weld, is the fact that a group of undeniably talented animators are now out of a job. I sincerely hope they can find more work, and Disney can go f themselves for firing them. And don't get me wrong, being indifferent to Blue Sky's closure doesn't mean I actively wanted them to go out of business. I mean, they were harmless, releasing fine but forgettable movies without much of a positive impact on pop culture, besides making Big Weld. But it wasn't an aggressively negative impact like that of Illumination. They just kinda did their own thing in the corner, and I just kind of ignored them for most of my adult life. It's not like I had to get force-fed the mini-sloths from Ice Age 2 in the same way the Minions poisoned so much of what I hold dear. So whatever, let's talk about Blue Sky and their aggressively mediocre lineup that I have no strong opinions on. I did this for you, Big Weld, my sweet, sweet prince.
Disappointment in the game of life.
Ice Age 5. Do you hear me? 5. They made 5 of these. DreamWorks didn't even make 5 of any of their franchises, not even Shrek. How does a studio only make 13 movies and 5 of them are Ice Age? What a sick joke! You'd be hard-pressed to find any animated franchise that's nearly as creatively bankrupt as this one. Despicable Me may be approaching 5 movies, and most of them may be terrible, but at least 2 of those are just filling in backstory and not desperately trying to prolong a story that has absolutely no business continuing whatsoever. The most offensively bad thing about Ice Age 5 is not any of its content, but just simply the fact that it exists at all. Because, there's nothing to talk about here. It doesn't make me angry like your Earwigs or your Cars 2s. It's just so boring. All of these movies are about the characters taking a journey somewhere, making their way through dangerous set pieces, and eventually getting where they need to go and saving the day. Yay! In this one, Scrat finds a fucking UFO, which was technically set up as a background gag in the first Ice Age movie, which means they clearly planned this whole series out ahead of time. Oh my god, great work, Blue Sky. Thanks for tying the entire Ice Age saga together by doing this. Buck returns, which is kind of nice because he's pretty epic, but he also kind of drives the entire plot, leading the group and coming up with a plan. There's also these good dinosaur-ass villains who are chasing him and trying to prevent him from preventing the apocalypse because they're stupid. So the villains only have beef with him, and he's basically in charge of everything. So what does that mean the other characters get to do? Oh, nothing. Thanks for asking. Diego and his girlfriend, whose name I don't know, are upset that kids are scared of them. There is one scene at the beginning to establish this, and then it's never brought up again until the end of the movie, where the kids are suddenly not scared of them because they help save the world. Wow, what a great and well-developed plot line. Honestly, I completely forgot the Lady Tiger was even in this movie until I saw her again at the end and was like, oh yeah, she exists. Cool. Sid does nothing until they get to this magic place with a bunch of animals who are old, but use magic power crystals to be young. And the lady sloth likes him, but then he accidentally ruins the crystals and turns them all old. And the voice actors don't even try to sound old, they just have the exact same voices. Cool, good job. Manny is obnoxious and out of character because he doesn't like his daughter's fiance, which is fun because that means we got even more cliches, my favorite. It truly is amazing how they do every cliche imaginable with the daughter character in these movies. I think she deserves a medal for most cliche character of all time. Even the Scratch shit is just tired and boring at this point. Ice Age can go f*** off. They took a relatively grounded and laid back first film and turned it into this obnoxious farce of a franchise. I am so burnt out from watching these movies that I never want to see any of them again. Fortunately, this is a franchise that has had practically zero cultural impact, despite having 5 movies that raked in billions of dollars at the box office. Nobody talks about Ice Age except when they say how much they want to kill the baby for some reason. No one gives gives a shit about these movies, and I couldn't be happier about that. Just put these animals out of their misery already. They deserve to go extinct. Thank you, bye. Also, don't even come at me in the comments saying I missed the Buck Wild movie. That wasn't Blue Sky. They're dead now. That was some other shitty studio. I don't have to watch it. Fuck you.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
One day, without any prompting, William randomly showed up to my house, gave me the Blu-ray for Epic, then left. I had never seen Epic, nor did I want to, so I had practically no use for this thing. Though we did put it in the background of the Tamatoa video as a joke. Well, the good news is, thanks to this ranking, I finally have a use for this thing. Let's pop it in and give it a watch.
2 hours later.
What the hell was that? You know, I've heard a ton of people say that Epic gives them Studio Ghibli vibes. And you know what? After watching it, they're totally right. This was just like Tales from Earthsea. I cannot express enough how thoroughly generic and forgettable this movie was. There's just so little to talk about with it. The main character has no character traits and she's kind of a huge dumbass, and all the other characters are really boring. There's a slug and a snail who serve as cringeworthy, terrible comic relief. They were never funny. I don't even remember their names. I don't remember anyone's names. The stakes feel extremely low, mainly because of how vague and poorly elaborated on the world building is. They also need to protect this pod, except at one point they leave it with the incompetent comic relief slug and snail without any supervision whatsoever in the middle of this crowded party where it could easily be stolen. And then it is. What could be more important to this one serious dude than personally guarding the pod that was the last remnant of his dead lover Beyonce? What was he thinking? Who gives a shit? Why is this movie even called epic when nothing epic happens in it? I guess it's nice that Blue Sky tried something wildly different from their usual output. Like, this is a lot more serious and has some pretty unique character designs and a new art style that's actually not too bad. But none of these things can save the fact that this is the most generic trite they could have possibly put out. Once again, not infuriating, but an experience I got nothing out of whatsoever. Fuck you, William. I'm gonna leave a Blu-ray copy of The Good Dinosaur in your mailbox when I get a chance.
It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
Ice Age 4. This is the first one of these movies that absolutely should not have been made. You could argue the second and third ones shouldn't have been made as well, but at least they come together with the first one to form a perfectly mediocre trilogy. There is no reason to continue past the end of the third one, and it shows.
What's up, my man?
In this wacky and completely necessary new adventure, Scrat becomes God himself and begins terraforming the entire planet. Also, Manny is Jesus, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what this line implies.
When exactly will I be allowed to hang out with boys?
When I'm dead. Plus 3 days. Just to make sure I'm dead.
His daughter is a teenager now, which is cool because that means they can do literally every single teenage cliche ever in one movie. They deadass have an exchange that's just 10 different cliche lines one after the other. How nice. There's an inexplicable Josh Gad mole that comes out of nowhere and is considered important by the end for some reason. He does not return for the 5th movie, so what does that tell you? There's a bunch of pirates, and I guess the Peter Dinklage monkey is like the first passable villain in the franchise. Like, he's mildly entertaining and has a surprisingly decent villain song and kind of a cool fight towards the end. I don't know, I was kind of dozing off at that point, so. I like when Scrag gets seduced by the nuts, because that was funny. I like how they introduce a female tiger for Diego to be in love with, because they ran out of things to do with him, so they just figured, oh, we gotta throw him in a passionless, chemistry-less, boring-ass hetero romance. Why not?
Do it, hetero.
Sid's grandma shows up, because I guess they just wanted Wanda Sykes in the movie, so they just invented a character for her to play. Drake and Nicki Minaj are in this movie. Yeah, seriously. I didn't bother looking up who they played, and I couldn't really tell, because who gives a shit? How come Nick Frost is in this one when Simon Pegg isn't? I feel like that's illegal. I also feel like Manny was way too much of a jovial dumbass in this one. He's so far away from his original personality at this point that it would be funny if I had any sort of investment in him as a character, but I don't anymore. This movie is genuinely intolerable and extremely boring at the same time. I'm not even sure what else I can possibly talk about at this point. It's just such a nothing installment in an increasingly nothing franchise made by a somewhat nothing studio. There aren't even nearly as many penis jokes in this one as there are in the third one, so what's the point? Oh wait, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry.
Horton hears domestic violence in the next apartment and doesn't call 911.
You know what's weird? I don't remember Horton Hears a Who being this bad. Everyone always calls this the best Dr. Seuss film adaptation. And the sad thing is, that's probably true. It's also like a 4 out of 10 movie. Dude, this was kind of painful. Like, Jim Carrey and Steve Carell both were shockingly unfunny and whatever in this. They straight up invented a pointless new character for Seth Rogen to play that could have been removed from the film entirely with nothing changing. This vulture villain is tasked with stealing Horton's clover, and he says he's gonna eat it. But then he doesn't eat it when he has it. He just dropped it in the big clover field. Why did he not just eat it like he said he would? Why is there so much boring slapstick filler in both the jungle and Whoville? Why set up this council in Whoville who doesn't believe the mayor that Horton exists if you don't have a scene where they realize they're wrong? Why is the mayor's son emo in this? And why is he voiced by Jesse McCartney? He has like 5 lines in the whole movie. What was the point? He doesn't even sing! On the Dr. Seuss wiki, I found out that for some reason, it says that JoJo's singing line was delivered by Fletcher Sheridan, who also played Cy, the O'Hare delivery guy in The Lorax. Which is a good metaphor for how much I wish this movie was more like The Lorax. Just unabashedly terrible in every way instead of just being boring. Plus, The Lorax at least had Danny DeVito and funny Tumblr sexy man and actual decent songs. Why did they break out into a random pop song at the end of this movie? Why are there so many pop culture references? Why is there a cringeworthy anime sequence in the middle of this movie? Actually, I shouldn't complain. That was my favorite part of the whole thing. That's what I wanted more of in this movie. Cringe. It was the only way to salvage it because clearly Dr. Seuss movies are not meant to be stretched into 90-minute films. They always gotta have terrible bullshit filler and pointless celebrities and ultimately be extremely boring and tedious. Then again, maybe I should be grateful this movie isn't too cringy, because if this movie was released nowadays, they absolutely would have named the sour kangaroo Karen, and I don't think I could inject that much pure, unadulterated cringe into my veins. Sorry. There's only one piece of value I derived from this movie, and that is our Lord and Savior, Yummo Wickersham. Praise be to him. Yeah, I don't know why, but a few months ago, my friend group started obsessing over Yummo Wickersham as a meme. I don't get it, but like, who am I to question memes? So yes, thank you, Yummo Wickersham, for blessing us by sticking a bajillion bananas in your mouth hole. Thank you for having approximately the same amount of lines as Jesse McCartney, yet graciously foregoing top billing in this movie because you did this for the art, not the recognition. Thank you, Dan Fogler, for bringing this simian saint to life. I would walk the length of the world to get Yummo back in my life. Please, Disney, let Blue Sky come back to deliver us one final swan song. The Yummo Wickersham origin story. We need to know the full history of this glorious, magnificent creature. Okay, guys, I hope that was good. Now time to forget about Yummo and go back to making Gargamel memes instead.
And his name is John C.
So I heard Ferdinand was one of the better Blue Sky movies, which I think was a reasonable assumption since the poster looked pretty and potentially emotional. Plus, not that this really means much, but it somehow garnered an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. One of only 2 Blue Sky movies to do so, alongside Ice Age 1. It also garnered this nomination the same year The Boss Baby did, so yeah, no, this practically means nothing. Ferdinand is ass. It's such a generic, boring children's movie filled with a ton of cliches, and it never once emotionally moved me, nor did it ever make me laugh. Ferdinand is a clumsy big guy who screws things up because he's clumsy and he accidentally destroys an entire town, so now he's sent back to the Bull Ranch place that he grew up on and escaped from. And then he just kind of vibes there for an hour with these other generic annoying bulls. It takes him forever to try and escape and get home, which clearly should have been the focus of the movie. But nah, first we gotta have an epic out of nowhere dance off with these German horses. And guess what? They dab! Hey yo, best movie ever! Oscar nomination ahoy, baby! People were paid to animate this. Real live people. They brought this image into this world and there's nothing as a society that we can do about it.
Look at what you've done! Now the animators are gonna have to draw all this fire!
Yeah, I thought this movie really stunk for most of its runtime, but honestly, there's this chase scene in the third act that was kind of fun and kind of got me invested. Plus, I liked the scene where he actually does bullfight. It was pretty well done, all things considered. The China shop scene was cute too, and I also think John Cena was pretty good as the titular Ferdinand von Iger. I am of the opinion that he's a surprisingly good actor, actually, and his vocal performance fit the character well. Everyone else was forgettable. I'm never gonna think about this movie again, but it's comforting to know that the poor animators who brought this abomination into the world received ample compensation for the dark, dark deeds they were required to perform.
What killed the dinosaurs?
Ice Age!
Ice Age 3, Dawn of Who Gives a Shit. There are a lot of penis references in this one. Like, a lot. It's the only joke the writers want to tell for some reason, and it gets extremely tiring. Surprise, surprise. There's no better example of sheer agony than watching the beginning of this movie and realizing, holy shit, I'm currently not even halfway done with this franchise. I can't believe we as a species let Ice Age happen. This one in particular has really bad pacing. Like, it takes 30 minutes to get down to the dinosaur world, because first Sid's gotta meander around with his dinosaur kids and act like a supreme dumbass. When the dinosaur mom comes to get her kids back, Sid refuses to hand them over. I, for one, love it when a main character is completely stupid and in the wrong. Like not even partially correct, just 100% wrong and absolutely deserving of getting kidnapped by this dinosaur. At one point, Diego sees the dinosaur carry off Sid, and his reaction is so hilariously nonchalant. Like, yeah, it's no big deal. He sees dinosaurs all the time, apparently. Oh yeah, Diego's sad in this movie because he wants to leave the herd because Manny and Ellie are having a baby, and he doesn't feel like he should be around anymore because he's a lone wolf tiger guy. But wow, he learns to appreciate the group and stay with them more. It's so tedious. I hate it. Oh my god, I don't give a shit. I forgot they were even having a baby throughout the middle chunk of this movie, honestly. It's such a non-factor in the plot, which is at least something Shrek the Third attempted to explore. Very, very badly, but at least there was an attempt. Okay, this movie's not nearly as bad as Shrek the Third, though. I like the Simon Pegg weasel they introduced in this movie. His writing isn't that great, but I think the voice acting really sells it, and it makes me kind of enjoy this character. The climax is kind of cool and well executed, at least the first one. Yeah, this movie has 2 climaxes for some reason, and I don't know why. They could have just combined the 2, but whatever. Scrat fights Lady Scrat, and I don't know, it's kind of funny to see him eventually fall in love with her, only to have an affair with his precious nut. Yeah, I think that's all I liked. This movie is boring, it makes dinosaurs boring somehow, and they should have just ended Ice Age here. But of course they didn't, because we were all put on this earth to suffer.
Nothing will stop me! Not even...
Rio 1. Set in the marvelous city. Land of sun and heat. This one's for all you Brazilian viewers out there, which my channel has a ton of for whatever reason. Love you guys! This movie makes your country look really cool and vibrant and alive, and basically the exact opposite of what you guys say it's really like whenever you talk to us on the streams on Chris's channel. By the way, if you ever want to talk to me or ask me anything, the best way to do it is on Chris's channel when we stream every Sunday and Monday, link in the description. Yeah, this movie is kind of one big love letter to Brazil, and I think that's neat. There's a clear passion behind the animation and the direction here, and that kind of makes up for the lack of interesting story or characters, but not fully. I don't know, this definitely isn't the worst animated movie out there, but it is really standard for the most part. I think Jesse Eisenberg was a really weird choice to play this McCall. Like, his voice acting isn't funny or charming, it's just kind of bleh. I don't know, he's never really been able to sell me on any of his performances post-Social Network, and it's no different here. Plus, he absolutely has no chemistry with Anne Hathaway Bird, which is due in equal parts to the voice acting and the writing. Spoiler for later in the list, I guess, but I saw no reason why Manny and Ellie should have hooked up in Ice Age 2 outside of the need to preserve their species. And the problem is kind of exacerbated here because they mentioned the whole need to preserve their species thing even less. And they make even less sense as a romantic pairing. I have no idea what Mark Zuckerberg did to get Anne Hathaway to fall for him. She just kind of does at some point because this is an animated movie. We gotta have a hetero love. Gotta check off every box in the checklist. Thank you very much. Hell, we actually have 2 hetero loves because I forgot about these humans falling in love, which I guess makes more sense because they're both extreme bird lovers, but that's not actually why they fall in love. They fall in love because they see each other in sexy bird outfits during the last 20 minutes of the movie. That's cool. Very well written, very well developed romance. Thank you for that. And okay, let's get this one out of the way. Everyone always tells me, ooh, you gotta talk about the main villain in Rio. He's voiced by Jermaine Clement, the Tomato Tamba guy. I'ma be real with you, Chief. I don't think he's doing that good a job in this movie. He's serviceable most of the time, but he honestly sounds kinda bored during some line deliveries. Like, you can feel the comedic passion when he's voicing Tamatoa, but in this movie, he doesn't really stand out, and it just kinda feels like he's going through the motions. And his villain song sucks hard. Like, I'm sorry, I cringed so much listening to this. The singing is fine, but the melody is unspecial, and the lyrics are...
I'm a feathery freak with a beak, a bird murderer. You think you're better than me? I never heard of you.
Ugh. Also, just in general, I don't remember a single other thing this villain did outside of singing the song, and I just watched the movie. Hell, I don't remember anything about the movie. It was fine, but forgettable, which I guess I'll take over some of the other shit Blue Sky has spewed out.
Mario, You are going to Brazil.
Rio 2 was not as good as the first.
Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't know why, but even though this was kind of an objectively less competent movie than Rio 1, I weirdly had more fun with it and wasn't really bored. It's like the Spider-Man 3 thing all over again. Sometimes I just like when a movie has 5 different unrelated subplots going on at once and forgets to resolve some of them by the end. And this is nowhere near the 10 out of 10 supreme comedic masterpiece that Spider-Man 3 is, don't get me wrong. I still only barely liked it better than the first film, with some of my reasons for liking it being unironic. Weirdly enough, I enjoyed the Jermaine Clement bird more in this movie. He's just allowed to be more goofy, and he plays well off of this frog voiced by Kristen Chenoweth for some reason. Haha, my Broadway-loving brain go burr, I really like that. On that subject, I like the musical number scenes a lot better in this one, and I also think it's kind of a neat idea to have Mark Zuckerberg try and raise his children like humans, in contrast to Anne Flyaway wanting to raise them like birds. Yeah, no, Anne Flyaway doesn't really work, I'm sorry. The medium of puns peaked with Mark Zuckerberg, and I should never try and top that, there's no point. There's a soccer game between blue and red birds in the middle of this for some reason, and I don't know, man, that's fun. I like that. Haha, soccer brain go burr. Anyway, now for the batshit ridiculous stuff. There's like 5 different villain groups in this movie. They meet Anne Hathaway's bird dad, and he's a huge asshole to Blue, and this never gets resolved by the end of the movie. But also, we have Jermaine Clement and his goons who want to kill Blue in order to get revenge for the first movie, which is 100% disconnected from everything else going on, even though it's kind of the best part of the movie. But then we have these redbirds who seek to control the nuts, so they play this soccer game against the bluebirds in order to see who can grab those nuts. But then we have this hunter villain guy who is deforesting the rainforest, and he likes lollipops.
Lollipops.
I don't even know if this guy has a name. He's the main villain, and he's only on screen for like 5 minutes. It's hilarious. The humans from the first movie are back, and they contribute nothing to the plot. They're just vibing in the rainforest. And then eventually, all the birds team up to take down the evil humans and their evil machines. Even the redbirds help out, despite the fact that the soccer game that gave them control over everyone's nuts happened 10 minutes ago. Yeah, 10 minutes ago they were the antagonists, and now they're helping the good guys, and their conflict with said good guys is never actually resolved. As far as we know, by the end of the movie, they still have full control over every single nut in the Amazon. Also, apparently Mark Zuckerberg and his family are now staying in the Amazon with all the other bluebirds, which means he's leaving his human mom behind. And the emotional scene where they say goodbye to each other after all this time is just so touching and heartfelt, and oh wait, that scene doesn't exist. Nah, we didn't have time to wrap up any of this movie's plot lines or character interactions or have any emotional moments because we had to get to the dance party at the end. How could we not? Oh wait, no, the dance party is thematically appropriate because the side characters from the previous movie were actually here scouting for talent in the Amazon, which is why they get a scene where they hold auditions and this one animal sings Memory from Cats? Haha, musical theater brain go burr. And then there's an ostrich that dances the apple bottom jeans, baby. Woo, yeah, boots with the fur. I think Rio 2 might have broken my brain. Like, morally, I know in my heart that I shouldn't rank it this high. It might just have the worst story out of any Blue Sky movie, and it's not like the characters are doing it any favors either. But man, I don't know. I didn't hate anything about it, like basically everything else we talked about in this list so far. I just found its shortcomings funny. I liked some stuff unironically. And in general, I think it's a pretty mid movie that I will likely forget about after posting this video. So all in all, one of the better Blue Sky movies. Alright, that's enough cringe for right now. Let's take a break and talk about websites. You know, if the Rio 2 Sidebirds had just advertised that they wanted to put a show together on their very own website, then they wouldn't have to come all the way to the dangerous Amazon jungle in order to find talent. Websites make the world go round, baby! And a great way for you to make some delightful websites is with Squarespace. Squarespace is a fantastic, intuitive, online website builder that allows you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Present your work using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs. Display projects in customizable galleries and add password-protected pages to share private works with clients. You can even present your videos from YouTube, Vimeo, and Animoto on your Squarespace site. Add an image overlay to your video to improve your website's load speed by waiting to embed video players until playback starts. Every design automatically includes a unique mobile presence that matches the overall style of your website, so your content will look great on every device, every time. And if you don't want that, you can always disable the mobile view from Website Manager. Buying a domain from Squarespace is so simple because there are no hidden fees or price hikes. Each domain comes with an ad-free parking page and free WHOIS privacy on eligible domains. Squarespace sells over 200 top-level domains, so you can find the perfect name for your website. Choose a URL that ends in .com, .net, .org, or you can always get a more specific one like .art if you want to be fancy. If you're ready to share your passions or promote your business with the rest of the world, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Schaffrillas to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Move it out, do the shit, take it back, and do the shit.
If I have to talk about Ice Age for any longer, I'm going to have a meltdown. This one is fine, but even as early as the second installment, you can tell this franchise was running out of steam. In the original, Manny and Diego had somewhat complex and well-developed character arcs, but in this one, their stories boil down to, will Diego get over his fear of water? And will Manny fuck this new lady mammoth he just met who thinks she's a possum? Yeah, she was raised by possums, so she genuinely believes that she is a possum for way longer than any rational mammoth should. I think a more natural direction for the plot to have gone would be if these two annoying possum brothers were actually twist villains who brainwashed Ellie into believing she was their possum sister in order to take advantage of her protecting them. I'm just joking. Or am I? I don't know, but all I know is this aspect of the plot is stupid. It doesn't take up the whole movie, thankfully, but of course, we also gotta have misunderstandings and arguing between them, and Manny accidentally implies that he doesn't want to fuck her for pleasure. He's just doing it for the good of the species to avoid extinction. Yeah, throughout the whole movie, everyone keeps talking about how mammoths are practically extinct and Manny and Ellie might be the last ones. But then out of nowhere, at the very end, a herd of mammoths show up, which means Manny and Ellie no longer have any moral obligation to fuck each other. But Manny still wants to be with her, which is weird. I didn't really feel like they had much chemistry over the course of the movie, and I feel like they'd be better off as friends, but this is a 2000s animated movie, so we gotta have romance. SMH, whatever. I just like how after Manny confesses his love to Ellie, all the other mammoths essentially clap for them by tooting their horns. That's a terrible cliche I never get tired of. At one point, Sid gets kidnapped by a tribe of mini sloths, and at the age of 8, I distinctly remember feeling marketed to by this scene. Like, this was definitely a prototype Minion situation. It has no bearing on the plot, and could be removed without anything changing, and was clearly just here to push these mini sloths as a potential mascot. But, I don't know, the scene went in an unexpected direction that I thought was kind of funny, so whatever. The vultures sing Food, Glorious Food from Oliver for some reason. I don't know, I didn't hate that surprisingly, even though I hate Oliver with a burning passion. Scrat is pretty good in this one actually. The slapstick is solid, and he impacts the plot in a few ways, but not in stupid, over-the-top bullshit ways like in the later movies. But yeah, overall, I'm not really feeling this one. It just kind of feels like a watered-down version of the first movie.
Get it?
Except the animation and the scale of the story and climax. The movie genuinely looks really good for 2006, and the apocalyptic threat is definitely felt, but the new characters are kind of lame and annoying. The old characters don't have nearly as much emotional weight to their storylines. The jokes are less good. The writing in general is less good. Oh well. At least it's not Ice Age 3 Dawn of the Dinosaurs, or Ice Age 4 Continental Drift, or Ice Age 5. Yeah! Robots! Woo! Big well! Hell yeah! Get up off of that thing! And maybe you'll feel better! Robots is such a strange fucking movie to talk about, because it feels like it should simultaneously be better and worse than it actually is. I'm not even really sure what I think about it, because it has so many unbelievably amazing elements mixed in with typical generic kids movie stuff. Like, this movie has this tremendously profound commentary on how the rich will do anything in their power to make basic human rights like healthcare unobtainable to the lower class, and will allow the poor to die out in the street. And then it also has an armpit fart contest. I think with some fine-tuning and further development of the story's anti-capitalist messages, this could have been like the magnum opus of Blue Sky Studios. They're one truly great movie. But like, as is, the messages are there, they're compelling, but the story doesn't really do anything with them. Rodney becomes this icon helping the poor and dismantling the oppressive establishment they all live in. But then the movie drops that, because he's gotta go find Big Weld, and they gotta do wacky hijinks at this party, and then there's a chase scene, and like, it's fine, but a little all over the place. They also definitely should have had Cappy meet Rodney way sooner, because as is, it feels like you could tweak the story a bit and remove her entirely. Robin Williams as Fender surprisingly isn't that great or memorable. He has some funny lines and moments, but overall this is probably one of his weaker roles. Okay, that's enough complaining about robots. There's other good stuff, like motherfucking fucking Big Weld! You know how I was kind of like meme praising Yummo Wickersham earlier? Well, that, but unironically, that's how I feel about Big Weld. It's Big Weld. He's so thick. He's voiced by Mel Brooks. Now, watching this as a 7-year-old, I didn't know who that was, but I could tell he was a big deal, and I could also tell the voice acting was really good. This is maybe the funniest joke in all of Blue Sky history.
I'm going in with you.
You are?
Hey, who's the dame with the sweet keister?
But why?
I don't know. I'm a big guy and I like women with large...
No.
Like, dude, that's so good. The misunderstanding elements, the voice acting from both of them, the fact that Big Weld is so upfront about his preference for big booty bitches, that's comedy, baby. How fucking cool is that domino scene, for real? In fact, how fucking cool is this world in general? Like, look at it. It's so imaginative and creative and whimsical, and it looks nothing like our own world. It looks like a place robots would live in. And they actually put some thought into how robots age, with them needing new parts and new voice boxes, and it's so cool. Let's be fucking honest with ourselves for a second here. Robots put way more thought into its world building and how the world affected the story than Cars did. And it's just a better movie in general. Like, with Cars, you just have so many questions about how these car people work, and the world literally just looks like our world, but sometimes car themed. You could do the story of the first Cars movie with humans and it wouldn't make much of a difference. Meanwhile, with robots, you actually understand how they work, and the story actually ties into them being robots, and wouldn't make sense if they weren't robots. Just, can we finally acknowledge that Pixar really shat the bed with Cars, and it's only this popular and semi-respected because it has the Pixar name attached to it? Blue Sky deadass outdid Pixar in this respect. Plain and simple. Oh yeah, and the climax is so cool when all the outmodes show up, Avengers Endgame style, to fight Madame Gasket. Ooh, and Madame Gasket, ooh man, what a dastardly villain. And Ratchet's so funny too. The part where Fender kills them all to the Britney Spears song, man, it's so funny. Ooh, and the camera pan, so great. And then the ending, man, to get up off of that thing. Ooh, it's like a fusion of jazz and funk. It's called Junk. Comedy gold. This is so epic. Okay, I changed my mind. You know how I said I don't feel passionately about any Blue Sky movies? Well, this is the one. This is the only one that I feel passionately about. It has its structural problems and many immature jokes, and it drops some of its most compelling story elements halfway through. But man, it's just got so much good shit in it that I love. It genuinely stuck with me over the years. This is a movie with some real love and care behind it, and you can feel that. I can't realistically rank it higher because of its problems. I think the top 3 are just fundamentally stronger movies. But come on, it's robots. It's kind of like how Tick Tick Boom was only number 8 on my best of 2021 list, but it's probably the movie I feel the most passionate about from last year. Imagine not feeling passionate about the movie that gave us Big Weld. Are you even alive if you don't like Big Weld? Come on. If necessary, I will fight Karsten Rundquist for the title of #1 Robots Enjoyer. Our battle will be legendary. Actually, nah, he can have it. I'll stick with #1 Yummo Wickersham Enjoyer. Anyway, let's talk about 3 movies that are better than robots, but I don't care about as much as robots. Friends, I have talked a lot of shit about Ice Age today. Can you blame me? It's an absolutely asinine franchise that poisoned our water supply, burned our crops, and delivered a plague onto our houses. But with that said, honestly, the first one's kind of good. Like, yeah, the animation is ugly. It definitely has that studio's first CG movie syndrome. And there's your usual poop and pee jokes that suck as usual. But I think as a whole, this is a movie with some pretty smart character arcs and an engaging enough story. Manny and Sid in this are just blatantly Shrek and Donkey, but without the nuance that made that relationship so compelling and special. But Sid in this is perfectly fine, and Manny is actually kind of interesting. In this one really powerful scene, they explain without words that he lost his family to hunters, and it becomes evident that he sees Ice Age Baby as someone he needs to protect in order to make up for his loss. I really like the wordless storytelling here. He never even mentions his family by name, but his pain and remorse is still made explicitly clear. It's really neat. The star of the show here, however, is surprisingly enough, Diego. I say surprisingly enough because he never has any compelling characterization in any of the 4 sequels that followed this movie. But here, he legitimately goes from a villain trying to lead Manny, Sid, and Ice Age Baby to their death, to someone who genuinely learns to care for them and ends up saving their lives. It's incredibly well paced and believable. Plus, when he reveals he was lying to them, they don't don't mope about it and kick him out of the herd. They end up believing that he wants to help since he has nothing to gain from admitting to them that he lied. It's a pretty refreshing subversion of the liar reveal trope, made all the more potent by the fact that he legitimately went from a villain to a hero over the course of the film. The other villainous saber-toothed tigers are just kinda whatever, as is the climax, which is a little awkwardly staged for some reason. But I really like the other set pieces in this movie. The sliding scene is fun, and the dodo bird encounter is really funny, which is not something I could say about almost every other scene in the other Ice Age movies. I don't know, man, this one's kinda neat. Not amazing, but honestly a pretty good first movie for a studio to make. Oh, also, I never got why everyone hated the Ice Age baby a couple years back, but yeah, f that baby, am I right?
I want peanuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's kinda hard to hate the Peanuts movie. This is consistently ranked as one of Blue Sky's best, if not the best film from them, and it's easy to see why. I think this film mostly deserves credit not for what it does, but for what it doesn't do. It doesn't try to modernize it or throw these peeps into the real world. It doesn't cast terrible, overpaid celebrities as iconic, beloved characters, completely bastardizing them in the process. It doesn't turn this property into a weird superhero crossover thing that has nothing to do with the original story. Seriously, what the f was Scoob? It deadass just is a classic feeling Peanut story brought to life with 3D animation. I don't know why it's so hard for studios to understand and adapt the appeal of classic properties, but this is an actual example of that sort of thing done right. I really like this movie, but I feel like its praise can be a bit overblown sometimes, mainly because the rest of Blue Sky's tepid filmography makes it look a shit ton better by comparison. Like, I saw a comment once that said that this is Blue Sky's Spider-Verse. Has that person even seen Spider-Verse? Like, what? This is a very sweet and cozy film, but it's definitely not perfect. They do sneak in one weird, out-of-place pop song during the movie, which really took me out of what otherwise felt like an authentic Peanut story. I did want more of some characters, like Peppermint Patty and Marcy. Even Linus gets sidelined pretty hard, which is surprising. And I'ma keep it real with you, Chief. I could not give less of a shit about Snoopy's Red Baron dream sequences. They start off cute, but they just go on, and there's so many of them during the second half that it's ridiculous. I know this is an imaginary story, guys. There's no tension here. Can we cut back to Charlie Brown? That's the part I'm actually interested in. But yeah, the Charlie Brown story is good and really compelling. You just really want him to catch a break and impress the little red-haired girl. And while it's sad to see all his missteps, it's nice that most of them happen because he does the right thing and helps his friends. Charlie Brown is just such an honest, pure character, and this movie really gets that. Like, there's a scene where everyone's praising Charlie Brown at this assembly because he got a perfect score on his test. But it turns out he accidentally put his name on the wrong one, and this is actually Peppermint Patty's. So what does he do? He comes clean about it right then and there when he realizes it. Whereas every other shitty-ass kids movie would have him lie because he likes the attention. And then eventually the liar will be revealed and everyone will hate him, and then he'll realize he was wrong. No, none of that bullshit in Peanuts, thankfully. This isn't Dear Evan Hansen. Yeah, I mean, it's the Peanuts movie. What else is there to say? It's cute, it's sweet, it's wholesome as heck. I loved all the little references to other Peanut stories they put in there. It's just a very nice movie. The story does feel a bit stretched out and not all of it works, but the stuff that does is very charming. Definitely worth a watch. Yeah, I know, right? What the fuck? Please forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned. But I just really liked the Will Smith Pigeon movie. I remember when the trailer for this thing dropped and everyone was so blown away by how cool all the spy stuff looked, myself included. And then he turns himself into a pigeon. Funniest shit I've ever seen. Yeah, talk about a movie that looked like it had so much potential only to flush all that down the drain with such a dumb premise. So I didn't check it out until I had to make this list, and I am deeply beyond shocked to report that this was kinda good, actually. Obviously, the best part is the very beginning when it does feel like a legit spy film. Like, this shit is really well animated and choreographed and exciting. It feels nothing like anything Blue Sky's ever made before, and it's pretty wild tonally. Like, did you ever expect to hear the Yakuza mentioned in a kid's film? Because they sure do mention them here. This shit is actually great, and Will Smith is a pretty charismatic spy guy. Then, of course, we gotta get to the pigeon shit, and this is where I expected the movie to go downhill hard. But, I don't know, man. It's not nearly as good, but it's still pretty fun. Like, the dynamic between Will Smith and Tom Holland is charming, and I like how they have to rely on each other while also trying to come together and understand each other's perspectives. How Tom Holland is a pacifist who likes to rely on goofy weapons, while Will Smith just wants to kill people. Yeah, this movie has no problem killing people and mentioning how many people Will Smith killed. It's kinda cool, actually. We do have typical poop and pee and shit and gross jokes, because of course we do, and those suck as always. But I feel like it could have been way worse. Like, there's these pigeons who bond with Will Smith Pigeon and help him out, and thankfully, they don't talk. I feel like this was the perfect opportunity for Blue Sky to add in more shitty, annoying celebrities, but I guess they just figured the two charming ones they had were enough. So these sidebirds are completely silent, which is perfect. Silence is bliss. Shut the fuck up, Slug from Epic. You're so annoying. Oh my god. The villain isn't great, unfortunately. They definitely could have developed his backstory a little bit more, and the ideological conflict he presents doesn't really feel earned. Also, he frequently disguises himself as Will Smith, which...
Is that fucking blackface, dude?
I also feel like while the action set pieces are mostly pretty great throughout the whole movie, the last one during the climax is a little muddled and all over the place, but it's not bad. Aside from the terrible lowest common denominator humor, a lot of the jokes in this were actually kind of funny and made me laugh. Tom Holland's character is kind of a big screw up, but he's not frustrating to watch. They actually execute that archetype in an engaging way that makes you kind of feel for him. That whole pigeon shtick isn't too bad, honestly, and they resolve it before the third act, so we actually get to see Will Smith as a human again. That's pretty nice. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Spies in Disguise is indeed a good movie in spite of its faults. And I extremely can't believe I'm saying this, but I consider it to be the best Blue Sky movie. It's a 7 out of 10. This is Blue Sky's peak. I guess it's nice that they went out with somewhat of a bang, peaking at the very end of their life. But like, if you're familiar with my ranking videos, I think you can tell something felt weird about this, right? I'm usually a lot more emotionally invested in the movie I'm giving the top spot to, really singing its praises, maybe even saying what a life-changing, wonderful experience it was for me. Here, this movie is kinda good. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, man. This wasn't, this wasn't anything, really. I just didn't feel much for the studio watching the vast majority of their movies. But at the end of the day, they made a couple good things, and one phenomenal thing, that being Big Weld.
It's the big boy.
Also, robots in general, I guess. It's a phenomenal movie, I love it, 6 out of 10. While I'm still mostly indifferent to this studio's closure, I guess it is kind of a shame, because they were starting to get better towards the end here. And maybe they were on track to eventually get good enough to make their very own Spider-Verse. Just a phenomenal movie that shocks everyone and turns the entire world of animation on its head. If they had to make some inoffensive mediocrity in between, so be it, I guess. They weren't really hurting anybody, but now I guess we'll never know what they had in store. Everyone keeps saying that their next film, Nimona, based on a popular webcomic from the creator of the She-Ra reboot, would have been their magnum opus. Or maybe it would have been another epic, we really don't know. Apparently it has gay people, so Disney's never gonna finish it. That's such a shame. It would have been nice to see Blue Sky finally find their footing and become a respected name in the animation industry, much like Sony is starting to be. But there's plenty of other studios out there, and the immediate future for animation does look bright. Maybe now I should rank one of those bright looking studios, like... Oh wait, I guess I already ranked Pixar, DreamWorks, Sony, and a couple decades of Disney. I wonder what else is left in the realm of American animated films.